All right, we're looking at a 2007 Nissan Maxima. Maxima, yeah. Anyway, he called me this week and said he was in Nashville and the AC compressor locked up, and he wanted me to change the AC compressor. So that's what he actually bought the compressor and brought it to me in the car. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to diagnose anything. Normally, when your AC compressor locks up, you're going to hope that it's your clutch, best case scenario. That way, normally if the clutch locks up, you won't necessarily put a lot of stuff through your system normally. And then if the actual compressor, say it has a problem with the piston inside or some kind of lockup or issue inside the compressor, that can cause all kinds of issues with your the rest of your system. It'll blow debris, metal, and things like that through your lines. Can clog up your condenser, your evaporator, expansion valve, orifice tube, whatever your system has. It can cause all kinds of trouble. So he didn't ask me to really diagnose or look at it other than just change the compressor and recharge it. So that's what I'm going to do. First thing I did was hook the gauges up to the high and low side to see if anything leaked out of it. And it's got about 100 on both sides static, which that's what you want. Normally, if a system is full and in good shape, you'll see usually around 100 on both gauges. So the first thing I'm going to do is evacuate the system, and then we'll start taking it apart. I don't actually work on Nissans that much. I've probably changed the compressor on one of these before, but I don't see Nissan a whole lot. I mainly work on Honda and American stuff, and then some Toyotas and Hyundais, but actually Nissan and the European cars I really rarely ever see. So I'm going to kind of, I already looked at the service date on this, and it looks pretty straightforward and easy to get to. It's underneath. So first thing we'll do is vacuum it down. Or not vacuum it down, we're going to recover it. If you don't have a recovery machine, you want to take it somewhere and have it recovered, just because that's what the responsible thing to do is to have it recovered. So anyway, I'm going to go get my recovery machine, come back, we'll hook it up, recover this, and then we'll start taking the compressor out. All right, so I got the machine hooked up and ready to go. The other thing about checking the pressure before I take it apart is just to see if there's any leaks in the system. If the compressor would have blew out, maybe there's a seal that blown out with it and we wouldn't have any Freon in the system. So this basically tells me, with it having 100 pounds on both sides, high and low, that the system was probably working okay and had the right amount of Freon in it and was operating fine before this problem. It still won't tell me if it's the actual compressor itself or the clutch that's really bad. So basically, anytime you have a compressor go out like that, you're taking a chance, and just changing the compressor. There's a good possibility stuff's got out of the compressor and went to the rest of the system. And that's part of the reason why a lot of times now when you buy a compressor, you get the lifetime warranty. They want you to buy other parts with it so that you replace it. Now, obviously, if you got a bad evaporator inside your dash, that's a huge job, and you want to try to avoid that as much as possible. But anyway, that's not what I was tasked to do today, so I'm just going to go ahead and do what he asked me to do. So you're just going to hook all your gauges up. You're going to open up your high and low side on your gauges. And I realize most of you are not going to have a recovery machine, so this is going to be kind of like you're going to go and take it somewhere and have it done or whatever you want to do. But anyway, I got it power on. I'm just going to hit start, and we'll just wait until these gauges get down to zero. Usually only takes about 5 minutes, and it'll suck the system down. So I'll go ahead and wait for that, and we'll come back. All right, so we're down to zero now. Go ahead and close it out. Close up my gauges. And that means the system's completely sucked down now, so we don't have to worry about a whole bunch of stuff coming out when we take the compressor off. So this compressor's underneath the passenger side, so I'm going to go ahead and jack it up and get under there, and we'll start taking this thing apart. All right, so I'm underneath the car. It looks like we got to pull this panel off. Looks like there's a bunch of 10 millimeter and maybe a few little push-in clips. I took the wheel off on the passenger side and took that little cover off over there because I'm not sure what the belt access is like. And I also realized I started it up and turned the AC on, and the clutch is not coming on. He told me that the clutch was locked up and he had to get a new the mechanic said he put a new belt on it and bypassed the AC compressor, but it's not bypassed. So I can't show you right now, but it's not bypassed. So I guess the clutch just isn't working, and I don't know what they did with the belt and all that, but it's not, the compressor's not locked up. It's just the clutch isn't coming on. So maybe we'll take this shield off and check the wiring and all that and make sure that the wiring works before we do anything. So let's get this shield off and kind of look at the compressor and see what's going on. All right, so I'm under here, and you can see it's unplugged. Someone unplugged it. So I guess what happens is when you plug it in and try to run the compressor, the clutch locks up. So that might be a good thing for him. That means the compressor itself is turning, and it's probably not an internal problem with the compressor. Usually, if you have an internal problem with the compressor, the whole thing will lock up, and then it'll throw the belt, and you can't run the belt at all, even if you unplug it. But with this being, with that compressor being able to turn with the clutch unplugged, means that the compressor itself is probably okay. It's just the clutch. So we're probably not going to have a lot of stuff through the system, thankfully, and this might be pretty straightforward. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off these lines here. It looks like, I don't know, I don't work on Nissan that much, maybe a 14 or a 13. I don't know if Nissan even uses a 13. I'll figure out what size it is, I'll let you know, but we're going to take these two lines off, get them out of the way, and then we'll start taking the compressor off. And like I said, he already bought a compressor, so I'm just taking the compressor off and replacing it basically, and then I'll vacuum the system down and charge it. But I was just basically hired to change the compressor. So we'll get these two lines off. I'll let you know what they are, and then we'll go from there. All right, so it ended up being 13 millimeter. I guess Nissan does use 13. Like Honda doesn't really. Honda uses 12 and 14. So not that I'm a Honda tech, but I do work on them a lot. But anyway, it's 13. I got a little shallow with a stubby extension and then a flex head ratchet. You could probably use a deep well too, and basically be the same size. So that's what I'm using to get the bottom and top loose on it. So let's go ahead and take those out, unscrew them. You do have room. It's pretty tight in here. I can barely get my hand in there, but there's enough room to get the tools in there and get it going. So I'm going to go ahead and take the lines off. And probably I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I need to take the belt off. I should have took that off first, but we'll go ahead and take these. Since I'm already under here, I'm going to take these two lines off, and then we'll get the belt off next. And one quick thing I will add right here is if you haven't evacuated your system and you take these lines off, you're going to have about 100 pounds of pressure of Freon coming out of there. So make sure you evacuate your system before you start taking any lines off the compressor. Otherwise, you're going to get a face full of Freon, more than likely. All right, so I got the wheel and shield off over here, and I'm going to take this belt off next. I got the two lines off. Looks like we got to loosen this 17 millimeter nut here, and then we got to go up top. It's got a tensioner that comes down through the top, and you unscrew it or screw it depending on if you want to tighten or loosen it. So I'm gonna go get it open in, and we'll loosen the 17 millimeter nut, and then we'll go up top, and probably won't be able to see it from here. Sorry about the light. But there's an adjuster screw goes up towards the top, and it's probably 10 millimeter if I had to guess. I haven't been up there yet, but I'll let you know for sure, and then we'll loosen that up and get this belt off, or at least get it out of the way so I can take it off, because we got to get to this bolt here, and I believe there's a bolt here for the front, and there's, I think, 3 on the side of this compressor. So it's pretty straightforward getting it out. It's just pretty typical of almost any car. So anyway, I'll go get the 17, we'll loosen it, and then we'll get this belt off. All right, from the top here, you got this 14 millimeter adjuster nut. And we're just going to go ahead and loosen it. Should be loose enough. Hopefully you can see it. It's a long adjuster nut right here. Got the camera in there. Got the stupid low pressure line in the way here. Let me move this out of the way. So anyway, it's right there. It's people ask why you don't film everything. This is why, because you can't get your stupid light and everything to line up perfectly. So anyway, here's the tensioner from the top, and it's a 14 millimeter. So we just went ahead and loosened it. That should be enough to get the belt off, and then we're going to go ahead and go back underneath there and get that compressor off. All right, we got two 14 millimeter bolts. You got one right here and one right above it. I just went ahead and used a standard 14 millimeter shallow with a flex head ratchet and broke them loose. And then I'll go back in there with my Milwaukee and take it the rest of the way out. Obviously, I can't really show that. It's too tight. But here's another angle of it. You got one way up there. I don't know if the camera's picking up. And then there's one down here close to the exhaust. So I get those two out, and then we'll go to the front. But it's pretty straightforward. All right, looks like we got 14 here. We may have to take this stud out. I'm not sure if this will clear with the stud out. I just got the belt kind of off to the side here. Well, it looks like we got 212 down here, but right now we're going to concentrate on this 14 here and get that one loose. And then looks like it's too smaller, maybe 12 underneath. And sometimes you have to pull these studs out to get enough room to clear the compressors. I'm not sure if we're going to have to on this one or not, but I'll let you know. So now we're just going to get these two 12s here, it looks like, and go from there. There's one here and then one here to hold the line on. They're a different size, I'll let you know. All right, so there is a 12 underneath this pulley here. You're going to pull this pulley up, the tensioner. There's a 12 hanging on to it underneath there. So I'm going to go ahead and take that one out. And that's probably going to definitely, unless I take the tensioner off, which I really don't want to do that, it's probably definitely going to mean I'm going to take this stud out here to get the compressor loose because it's not going to clear. So I'm going to go ahead and get this 12 out underneath this pulley here. Hopefully you can see it's right there. And then we'll take this stud out and this compressor should come out. All right, so here's the new compressor. I'm not even sure what brand it is. He got it online somewhere. Always read the instructions when you put a compressor on. This has got some kind of convoluted message about how compressors never go out because the compressor goes out. It's because something else. Like compressors last forever, and there's no way for them just to fail on their own. Basically, what this is saying, that it has to be some other reason, and if you don't correct that, then your warranty's not going to be any good. So basically, it just gets them out of covering it ever if something goes wrong. They never, could be something electrical. Clutch burns out, gets tired. The magnets get tired. The piston blows in the compressor, stuff like that. But they never mention that. They just say, there has to be another reason why the compressor went out, and we're not going to cover the warranty if you don't fix that reason. So anyway, this car is what, 2007? So, they never take into account that these parts wear out regardless. But I was looking at the oil and really couldn't get a clear answer on what kind of oil they put in there or what they did. So what I ended up doing was just kind of dumping it over my clean container here. And it had a bunch of oil in it, so I put it back and I rotated the compressor. And then I like to put these plugs back in while I'm putting it back on the car, just so the oil doesn't leak out while I'm trying to put it back in. So this looks like it's already pre-charged and ready. I might add an ounce or two oil, depending on what Nissan says. I'm going to check real quick and see what they suggest on the repair data. But it appears that this thing's already got oil in it and it's ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and put it over by the car and start putting it back together. So I looked it up. This system takes 5.3 ounces. And it's PAG 46 in case you want to know, and quite a bit came out of that compressor, so I might put like an ounce in at the most and go from there. But I think with that being pre-charged, I think we're good to go. Like I said, I might just put like an ounce in there just to make up for sucking it all the way down and just to cover my butt. But you don't want to put too much oil in it because then you lose the efficiency of the cooling. So you got to be kind of careful with putting too much in, but obviously you don't want to run too little and then burn the new compressor up. So it's already got some in there, and it's only 5.3 ounces, so it's not a whole lot. So I'll probably put like an ounce in extra and then call it a day on that. So it doesn't really give you clear instructions on how much to add or if we should add any at all. Some compressors do, some don't, but the thing nowadays is just leave it on, let you guess, and then deny your warranty if you don't buy a bunch of extra stuff with the compressor that they deem needs to be replaced every time you change the compressor. So anyway, I'm not going to ramble on about that. I just know that these guys are making it harder and harder to do warranty claims. I just had a Silverado probably 3 weeks ago. I got 2 bad compressors right out of the box. And you say, well, you must have done something wrong. It's like, no, I put the 3rd one on. It worked perfect. So it's just how this is, these parts now. So anyway, we'll go start putting it back together. Back in pretty easy. All I did was just get it lined up and put this stud back in. So I'm going to go ahead and just put the bolts back in. I'll put in this bolt and then the 2 bottom bolts and then go to the back. And the other thing I'm going to complain about is the compressors used to come with new seals for the lines. And this one didn't. I have a whole drawer full of seals because every time you buy a compressor now at O'Reilly's, you have to buy the AC kit to get the warranty. So I literally have probably, I don't even know, a couple hundred seals. So I'll have to line them. I'll have to just go in my drawer and get some new seals. But if you don't have seals, it's a good time to replace them, especially on those lines. You might get away with not replacing them, but like I said, this car is 2007, so it's pretty old. We're gonna go ahead and put new seals on it. It's kind of frustrating that they don't come with them, but that's where we're at now. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and put the bolts in on the front here, and then I'm gonna take the seals off the old lines and see if I can match them up, and then we'll put those on. So anyway, I'll catch you off once I get the front stuff put on here. All right, so I got all the front bolts started and tight. The only thing I'll point out, I got the belt on too, it's just loose. I haven't went up and tightened it yet, is I did start the back bolts and get them in pretty far. You don't want to just run all these down the front and then try to get the back ones in. You always want to kind of put everything in and get them all, started pretty well and then tighten them down. So I do have the back bolts started and in probably about 80% of the way before I tightened all these up. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten those up, and then we'll change those seals real quick, and then we'll vacuum it down and go from there. All right, this is my AC drawer. You can see here I got a ton of these seals, all the different kinds of seals and cores and all that. If you don't have that, this laying around, which you probably don't, you probably have to go to the auto parts store. I got it lined up here, got the 2 new seals. Yeah, I just used a pick and kind of get it off the line, and then when you put it back on, it's a good idea to put a little PAG oil on that around the seals to seal them in well. And that's pretty much it on the seals. So I still got those rubber boots in the compressor to hold it so it doesn't, I didn't leak any fluid when I put the compressor on. But we're going to go ahead and slip these new ones on, put a little oil on them, and tighten them back up. All right, one thing I'll point out about putting these lines back on, it's easier to do the top line first so your bottom line's not in the way. So go ahead and put your top line in, tighten it, and then put the bottom line in. It's the same with taking it off. It's easier to get the bottom one off and then move it out of the way and then get the top. It's probably self-explanatory, but just if you don't work on cars a lot, that's the way I would do it, or that's how I did it. So right now I'm just going to go ahead. I'm not worried about leaks right now because I didn't have any, we checked the static pressure on it and it had 100 on both low and high. So I don't think the system has any leaks in it. So what I'm going to do, and we just replaced the compressor and put new seals in. So I'm not real worried about other leaks. If I thought there was other leaks in it, I could, at this point right now, before I vacuum it down, I would introduce air in the system, about 100 pounds, and go around with some soapy water and kind of look for another leak. But I don't suspect that on this because, like I said, it was full when we got here. So we're going to go ahead and put the vacuum pump on it, vacuum it down, and go from there. All right, I did get ahead of myself a little bit. We're going to head and tighten the tensioner up. So you got belt, feel the belt down by the compressor until it feels pretty tight. You don't want to go nuts, but just make sure there's a decent amount of tension on it. Run that 14 millimeter down until it feels tight, and then tighten that 17 millimeter nut on the pulley, and then you're ready to go. So I got the gauges hooked up still. I'm going to get my vacuum pump and we'll start vacuuming this thing down. All right, so I went ahead and vacuumed it down for about 30 minutes, and I've had it off now. I closed the valves, turned off the vacuum, and I've had it off now for about 20 minutes, and neither one of the gauges moved, which is a good indication there's no leaks in it. Like I said before, if your gauge would move back to zero, or say it started here and moved, it really shouldn't move at all, but if it moved even a little bit over like a 15-20 minute period, then you probably got a leak somewhere. Now, this doesn't guarantee you won't have any leaks because this is just, you're not under pressure here. So a leak that doesn't show up, like sitting here, may show up if you put it under pressure. That's why a lot of times if I think I got more than one leak or I'm looking for a leak, I'll fill the system with air and then use water with soap and try to find it. But like I said, that's not the situation here. So anyway, what we're going to do now is go ahead and start introducing Freon into it, R134, and then fill it up, see if it works. I believe this car calls for 1.25 pounds or 1.3 pounds, somewhere around there. The best way to do is if you have a machine, which I don't actually have one of the AC machines. I do have a Freon scale. I can show you that. If you have like a 30-pound jug, you can scale it out and or weigh it out and put it in the exact amount. I know most people aren't going to have that, so I'm going to use, and I'm actually out of 30-pound. I just went through my last bottle last week, so I'm going to just use individual cans like a normal person would, a normal do-it-yourselfer, and put it in there. It's going to be a can and probably about little almost 2 cans, but not quite. So you don't want to overfill it because it won't cool. So right today it's around 90 something degrees, and it's pretty high humidity. So normally on a day like today, I'd probably like to set it around 30, 35, and your high side is usually 100 degrees plus whatever the temperature is outside. Today, like I said, it's almost 100, so we're going to be seeing probably 200, maybe a little over 200 on the high side. Now these numbers will be skewed if if it's super hot out or even cold out. It's going to be harder to set the numbers, get them where you want them, unless you know how to put the exact amount of Freon in. So in that case, if it's super hot or super cold, it's better just to have the machine and put it in the exact amount, and then you know you got it right. But today's not super hot. I should be able to get it really close without the machine and get it to where it cools right. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. I'll double check and see what I'm also going to add an ounce of oil. I'm going to do that real quick, and then I'll check and make sure I double check what the exact Freon goes in on this. It might tell me right here, actually. It probably tells me right there. So I'll find out for sure, let you know, and then we're going to start filling this thing up. All right, this is one step you don't want to skip. I got the supply line going to the vacuum pump, and we're going to go ahead and open the valves, both sides, high and low. And we're going to turn the vacuum pump on. And what's going to happen is you should start pulling the vacuum on your gauges. You can see here, this one's pulling the vacuum right away. It was at 0. And we'll get down almost to where it's pegged completely out at 30. And this one's already pegged out the high side. So we're just going to leave this on and let it run about 30 minutes. And make sure we get all the air and moisture out of the system. A lot of people, do-it-yourselfers, will skip this step. And you might get away with it as far as your AC will work, but you're going to lose a lot of efficiency with the AC. It's not going to be as cold as it could be. And I highly recommend that you suck it out, or vacuum it down. So a lot of auto parts stores now, if you don't have that pump or rent it out, I know Harbor Freight, if you're going to start doing a lot of your own AC work, Harbor Freight sells a few different pumps. I think one's like $80 or something, the smaller one. So don't skip this step if you're at home. And if you don't have a vacuum pump or access to it and can't have it done, maybe see if a shop will do it for you, or a friend that has one or something like that, because it's very crucial to get the proper cooling in the AC and make sure everything's efficient. So I'm going to go ahead and let this run about 30 minutes, and after that we'll close the valves up and let it sit about 15-20 minutes to see if there's any movement in the gauges. After you run it 30 minutes and you close your valves, these should stay where they're at, wherever they stop at. If they start to move or go back to, say this one goes back to 0 or it moves and you have a leak somewhere, and then you're going to have to address that before you move on, because otherwise you're just going to put Freon in, it's going to leak out. So I don't suspect this is going to have that. I'm still going to double check it. So like I said, we're going to let this run and then we'll come back. All right, so I got oil in here. I got about an ounce of PAC 46 in here, and I'm going ahead and putting a can in it right now. It calls for about 20 to 22 ounces of Freon, so almost 2 cans, a little bit less than that. So I'm going to go ahead and put this first can in all the way, and then I'll wait a little bit and start it and start putting in the second can, but not all of it. and we'll see if the AC works. All right, so I went ahead and put about 21, 22 ounces in it. You can see here it's at about 35 on the low side and right below 200 on the high side, so that's pretty good. And it's getting cold on the inside. I'm gonna go ahead and put the shield on underneath, get it off the jack, put the wheel back on it, and take it for a quick spin. But this looks like a fix. The fans are running, the compressor's running, everything seems to be doing what it's supposed to be doing. So that's basically the gist of it. I know I didn't show everything exactly how I did it because it's pretty hard to get the camera in there. It's a pretty tight spot where the compressor's at, but it's not really that bad. It's just getting the camera in there and the light and my arms and tools and stuff. But I pretty much gave you exactly where the bolts are at, what to do, so it should help somebody. Anyway, that's pretty much a fix on this Nissan Maxima 2007 with the 3.5 in it. Thanks for watching. As always, God bless.